It's minus 20 outside. You step into your apartment, kick off your shoes, and the heating wraps around you like a second skin. You don't think about it. You shower in hot water. You eat food kept fresh by a machine humming in the corner. You sleep under a blanket made of synthetic fiber, engineered to trap your body heat with surgical precision. But for 99% of human history, this didn't exist. No walls. No glass, no fabric, no heaters, and the cold was not the cold you know. We're talking about temperatures that froze rivers solid for half the year, winds that flayed exposed skin in minutes, snowstorms that lasted weeks. For tens of thousands of years, our ancestors faced an enemy that didn't sleep, didn't tire, and didn't negotiate. Winter wanted them dead, and somehow, they survived. The methods they used to do it are stranger, darker, and more brilliant than anything you'd guess. Let's start with the scale of the problem. Around 21,000 years ago, the planet hit something scientists call the last glacial maximum, the coldest point of the most recent ice age. Global temperatures dropped by about 4 degrees Celsius compared to today. That sounds modest until you remember it's a global average. In Europe, the actual winter temperatures plunged 10 to 15 degrees below modern levels. Glaciers covered most of Britain, Scandinavia, and northern Russia. The tree line retreated hundreds of miles south. Where Paris now stands, it was tundra. Where Berlin stands, it was permafrost. Modern humans had migrated out of Africa with a body designed for tropical heat. We have no fur, we have thin skin, we have small bodies for our height. By every biological measure, we should not have survived a single winter at those latitudes. And yet, we did. The reason is that we figured out something no other primate ever has. We learned to weaponize everything around us against the cold. The first weapon was clothing, and the date when humans actually started wearing it is way more recent than you'd think. In 2011, David Reed, a researcher at the University of Florida, published a study in the journal Molecular Biology and Evolution using one of the most unusual methods ever devised to date human behavior. He sequenced the DNA of lice, specifically the body louse, a parasite that only lives in clothing, separated genetically from the head louse, which lives on the scalp. By measuring how long ago the two lineages diverged, Reed calculated when clothing became a permanent part of the human environment. The answer was about 170,000 years ago. That's when humans first put something on their bodies and kept it there. Before that, for hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors walked the earth completely naked, even through cold seasons. They survived by huddling, by fire, and by staying in warmer regions. The moment they started covering their skin, everything changed. They could leave the tropics. They could cross continents. They could face winters that would have killed them in days. But early clothing wasn't what you think. There were no tailors, no threads, no buttons. The earliest garments were just animal hides draped over the shoulders, held in place by hand or tied with strips of leather. They worked, but barely. The real revolution came tens of thousands of years later with one tiny, almost invisible invention: the eyed needle. In 2016, archaeologists working in Denisova Cave in the Altai Mountains of Siberia made a discovery that rewrote the timeline of human technology. Inside a layer of cave sediment, they found a sewing needle made from bird bone. It was 7 centimeters long, polished, with a precisely drilled eye at the top. It was 50,000 years old. And it wasn't made by Homo sapiens. It was made by the Denisovans, an extinct human cousin that lived in Central Asia. The implications are staggering. 50,000 years ago, another species of human was sitting in a cave, drilling holes in bone with stone tools, and stitching together fitted clothing from animal skins. They didn't just throw a hide on, they cut it, shaped it, sewed sleeves, sewed pant legs, sewed hoods. They made the prehistoric equivalent of a parka. With that single piece of technology, an entire continent of frozen tundra became habitable. Now, here's where it gets darker, because clothing wasn't enough. You also needed shelter. And in the open plains of Ice Age Europe, there were no caves, no forests, no wood, just grass, snow, and the bones of dead animals. So our ancestors built houses out of the only material they had, mammoth. In 1965, a Ukrainian farmer near a village called Mezherich was digging to expand his basement when he hit something hard. It was a mammoth jawbone. He kept digging. He kept finding bones. By the time archaeologists arrived, they had uncovered something nobody believed possible: an entire prehistoric village made out of mammoth skeletons. 4 circular huts, each between 6 and 10 meters in diameter, constructed from 149 mammoth bones each. Skulls used as foundations, dug into the ground like cement blocks. Long bones stacked in walls. Tusks curved into archways above the doorways. Hides stretched over the top, weighed down with more bones. A hearth in the center of every hut. The site dates to about 18,000 years ago, just after the peak of the last ice age. A 2025 reanalysis published in Open Research Europe confirmed the dating with new radiocarbon measurements. Each hut required the bones of at least 25 mammoths. Whether they hunted them or scavenged ancient carcasses from the permafrost, we don't know. But we know this: these people looked at the largest, deadliest animal on the planet and decided to make a house out of it. The mammoth houses weren't even the strangest thing. Let's talk about what may be the most controversial idea in modern paleoanthropology: hibernation. In 2020, a team led by archaeologist Juan Luis Arzuaga of Complutense University of Madrid published a study in the journal L'Anthropologie, analyzing skeletons from a cave in Spain called Cima de los Huesos, the Pit of Bones. The site holds the remains of nearly 30 ancient humans, possibly early Neanderthals or their ancestors, dating back over 400,000 years. The researchers found something strange. The bones showed patterns of damage consistent with seasonal disruption in growth, layers of bone formation that paused and restarted year after year. The same patterns are found in animals that hibernate. The researchers proposed a wild hypothesis. These early humans may have slowed their metabolism for months at a time during winter, sleeping in caves until food returned. The theory remains hugely contested. Many anthropologists doubt humans were ever biologically capable of true hibernation. But the bones are real. The patterns are real. And whether it was full hibernation or just long periods of deep, low-activity sleep in dark caves with minimal food, something about those winters made human bodies stop growing for a portion of every year. They didn't just endure winter. They may have switched off entirely. Now, here's the part that's hard to wrap your head around. Even with clothing, shelter, and possibly hibernation, our ancestors needed something else: calories. Massive amounts of them. A modern person sitting indoors burns about 2,000 calories a day. A hunter-gatherer in Ice Age Europe, exposed to constant cold, may have needed 5,000 to 6,000 calories every single day just to maintain body temperature. The only way to get those calories was fat, animal fat, and our ancestors became obsessed with it. Reindeer, bison, mammoth, all hunted not for their meat, but for their marrow and adipose tissue. The bones at Ice Age butchering sites are routinely shattered, smashed open with stone hammers to extract every last drop of fatty marrow. Anthropologists studying Inuit communities, the modern people most adapted to extreme cold, have documented diets that derive up to 75% of their daily calories from fat alone. Our Ice Age ancestors probably did the same. They lived on what would horrify a modern dietitian: chunks of frozen blubber, bone marrow scooped raw, brains, livers, organs eaten still warm from the kill. They didn't have a choice. The fat was the difference between living and freezing. And then there was fire. Always fire. But not the campfire you imagine. Ice Age humans engineered their fires for maximum heat retention. Inside their bone huts, they dug shallow pits in the floor and filled them with bones. Because mammoth bones, full of fat-rich marrow, burn longer and hotter than wood. In treeless tundra, this was the only fuel that worked. They surrounded the fire pits with stones to absorb and re-radiate heat through the night. They carved oil lamps from limestone and filled them with reindeer fat and moss wicks. Excavations at Lascaux Cave in France have uncovered dozens of these lamps, used to light the cave for painting tens of thousands of years ago. Inside a Mezherich hut, with a hearth-burning mammoth bone, fur clothing covering everyone, and 10 people sleeping pressed against each other under hides, the internal temperature could reach 20 degrees Celsius, while it was minus 40 outside. A 60-degree difference created with bone, fat, and fire. But the deepest survival method had nothing to do with technology. It was each other. In every Paleolithic site associated with extreme winter conditions, archaeologists find the same pattern. Skeletons of the elderly, the injured, the disabled, all bearing signs of years of survival they should never have had. A man with a healed broken leg, a woman who had lost most of her teeth decades before death, a child with a congenital disease that should have killed him within months. They were all kept alive through every winter by someone, carrying them, feeding them, sleeping next to them. In Ice Age groups of 15 to 30 people, the body heat of the tribe was a resource. People slept in piles, layered together for warmth, sharing not just food, but their own physical temperature. Modern humans now sleep alone, in separate rooms, in separate beds. For our ancestors, this would have been suicide. Winter was survived collectively or not at all. For 300,000 years, your ancestors lived through winters that would kill us in days. They wore the hides of the animals they killed. They built houses from the bones of monsters. They burned fat to light caves and warm tents. They may have shut down their own bodies and slept through the worst of it, like bears. They carried their wounded across snow that swallowed footprints in seconds. They ate food we would call disgusting and pressed against each other in the dark just to share a degree of heat. We sit indoors now and forget that any of this happened. Our thermostat clicks on, our coat zips up, our food arrives warm. But somewhere deep in our biology, the memory is still there. Every cold morning when you pull the blanket tighter and don't want to leave the bed, you're feeling the same instinct that kept your great-great-great-grandparents alive 20,000 years ago in a hut made of skulls. They didn't just survive winter, they invented us.